Hooray!
Hooray! We're back to talk about another 3 episodes of BoJack for another hour.
Almost the last time.
Almost the last time. So we're talking about episodes 12, 13, and 14 of Season 6.
Hooray!
Picking up where we left off from our last one.
Hooray!
Yeah.
Yeah.
So first episode is Xerox of a Xerox, and I want to start with a little something that I learned this week.
What did you learn this week, Jennifer?
This week, I would listening to a lot of interviews with Raphael Bob Waxberg, I don't know.
That's
Wax.
his full name.
The Wax.
Wax on, wax off.
And he said that one of the little games that he kind of played with himself this season was he had noticed, or someone had noticed, that they had used almost every letter of the alphabet to start an episode title, except for a few letters. They were only down to like a few of them. So he was like, I bet we can use the rest of these this season, you know?
Yeah.
So that now makes a lot of sense. We get Xerox of a Xerox for the X episode.
That's like, you're talking about like the full series.
The full
okay,
series.
At first I thought you meant the season. I'm like,
no.
But Jennifer, there are 16 episodes
No.
and there are 26 letters in the alphabet.
Yeah. No, it's for the whole series, and then for the last like season, he was like, yeah, we can get the last few episodes. And it was also partially then responsible for the view from halfway down being the V.
The V.
And that was kind of part of the reason how that episode and poem even came about, was because of this.
Oh, wig.
Yeah. Fun stuff.
That's very funny.
So, anyway, Xerox of a Xerox.
I think that kind of just flexes how well they are they write.
Yeah.
The team.
Yeah. And I kind of like how they just have a lot of fun with this show, and it's like a sort of off the cuff, you know? Not everything is really planned, but when they do stuff, like it always feels really well planned
intentional.
out.
Yeah, I feel like there's like a lot of things in this series where it makes a good callback, or it shows like good continuity, but I don't think it's necessarily planned out 100%. They just were like, hey, we pointed to this out like way early, we can trickle back to that.
Yeah, they're really good with working with what they've already
like,
established.
Right. I'm trying to think of what Z was, but I'll have to go through
I know,
the
I was trying to think of that too. Is there like a zebra episode or something?
Well, they have Bobo the Angsty Zebra,
yeah,
but that's not
name of...
Yeah, that's not the name of the episode.
No, I was trying to think of what the Z was.
We'll have to look it up.
Anyway.
So,
one of the first just little notes about this episode before we really get into things was they had the most, like, you know, casual and off-screen breakup between Mr. Peanut Butter and Pickles, which was very funny, of like, oh, I have a text and we're broken up.
And we're broken up forever. Yeah, they very, like, cleanly just kind of, like, shove that to the end.
Yeah, they're like, we're not going to give this any more screen time.
Yeah, fuck it. We don't care about Pickles and Joey Pogo anymore.
Which was fine. I'm like, yeah, that's all I needed was just for that. Like, yep, we're done.
I heard Joey Pogo's getting the fancy girlfriend.
Fancy girlfriend.
The fancy girlfriend. Thank you for laughing at that.
So yeah, most of this episode is the 2 interviews that he has with Biscuits Braxby.
Yeah.
And it's just really interesting kind of comparing the 2 and how like I think this is one of the, you know, strongest episodes of the season, if not of the entire show, just because I think it says some really interesting things. Yeah,
I think it all like really accumulates down to how and even BoJack even says this in his first interview, how all of his life he treats things like a show, and how he takes cues from shows that he watched growing up, because that's how he thought you were supposed to act in the real world, but then he realizes the writers are just as messed up as we are, the writers and the actors, and it all accumulates to it. But the first interview is like, even it's so ironic because it's so choreographed and it's so fake. Yeah, it's just this, you know, false authenticity that he's putting on of like, I'm being really sincere and apologetic, but as soon as it's over, he's just, you know, bragging to Princess Carolyn about how good his apology was. Right, exactly. Which I said when we were watching this, I'm like, oh, this reminds me of one of the scenes in Better Call Saul, the most recent season, which is very similar, where someone watching thinks that he made a really sincere apology, but then he's like, oh, I showed those suckers, they totally bought it. Right. And it's just this kind of crushing, like, moment. And I like how there was a lot of emphasis on Princess Carolyn during that. Yeah.
during this whole episode too, I think. Yeah.
I agree. And like, yeah, like going back to like, there's like so much. I like how it kind of ties back to season 5 because they take out the old Filbert set, which automatically is BoJack's house, and how that kind of shows BoJack still has those two identities between his real self and his acting self, kind of, and how it's not his actual house, it's not his actual life, it's not actually live. And I think, like, yeah, when he's talking to Princess Carolyn and he's like, wow, I really nailed that, didn't I? It's both instances of, like, those guys really bought it, and also how I, like, nailed, like it would be, like, how I nailed a line or a scene or something.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, and one line that he says during the first interview is, like, you know, sort of sincere, is like, I don't believe in rock bottom. I've had a lot of rock bottoms only to discover a deeper, rockier bottom beneath that.
Right.
Which is a really good line to kind of just describe the way that the show has been structured.
Yeah.
Where there have been all of these, like, crushing moments only for it to
get worse
and worse.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't even, we were kind of talking about this before, how we were saying, like, we both kind of agreed it was probably time for the show to, like, wrap up, because after, like, season 5 is probably, like, my least favorite season, but after that, when it kind of did start feeling more, okay, we get it, BoJack fucks up even worse, and nothing changes.
It felt like there wasn't anywhere really new to go.
Yeah, exactly. Point. Yeah, I agree. So I don't. Yeah, and I know a lot of people like. I'm sad to see it go, but I think it came to a natural conclusion.
And I kind of like a show that, you know, wraps it up before it's been around for way too long. And I think that BoJack was right at the brink of, like, there were some fans that were starting to be like, okay.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I agree. Because, like, and I think even that has, like, there's, like, a certain, like, they kind of poke at that in the show where it's, like, BoJack continuously does worse and worse and worse, and he never changes. And, like, you're kind of supposed to feel that as an audience, and I think we got to that point, and now it's time to wrap it up. Yeah, exactly. But, yeah.
So then, after the successful apology, BoJack gets greedy and cocky and does another interview, which is very stupid. And this is, like, one of the most impactful moments of probably the entire series.
Yeah.
When we get the bomb drop that, from the call records that reveal that he had called himself from Sarah Lynn's phone after she died to give himself an alibi, and then waited 17 minutes before he called the police, so, like, therefore is, like, you know, very well maybe responsible for her death.
And, like, we kind of touched on this last time we were talking about it, because, like, we knew, like, you know, BoJack wasn't telling people, like, the whole truth, and we knew BoJack was there with Sarah Lynn and he lied about that, but we didn't know he waited 17 minutes. As an audience, we did not know that.
Yeah, and I thought this was super impactful because it makes sense. Like, I don't know if it's something they had planned from, you know, the end of season 3, but it makes sense with kind of what we've seen since then. Like, there's that thing well, obviously since the beginning of season 6 they had planned this, but we see, like, after she died, he went out to the car and started drinking again. So that definitely makes sense in light of this. But obviously that was written when they knew where they were going with this season. So it kind of shows, like, they're able to play on what they've already established and realize where there's some gaps are that they can kind of fill those in to kind of reframe something we've already seen and make it hit really hard. And this hit really hard because I was definitely on team, like, you know, BoJack, he made mistakes, but he's not responsible for Sarah Lynn's death.
Yeah, I agree.
This totally shifted it. I was, like, just in shock.
Same.
Honestly.
And I think they played that so well to where because I think there was a lot of people that were like, you know, obviously there were people like, oh yeah, BoJack's 100% responsible, but there were other people like you and me who are like, you know, Sarah Lynn did have her entire house filled with drugs and alcohol.
And she, like, wanted to do the heroin.
And, like, her original plan for getting sober was so when she went back to drugs, it would feel even worse.
Right, yeah. She was not intending
It's like, she wasn't intending to stay sober.
Yeah.
So, like, knowing all that information, I feel like a lot of audience was like, okay, it's not, like, 100% BoJack's fault. Even with, like, the heroin thing, like, okay. Right. But then, like, with the 17 minutes drop, that's, like, irrefutable. You could have called.
Yeah. And I think, there's so many things about this that are so interesting. For one, he's like, oh, well, I panicked, like, when I called her. But it's like, that's not a panicking move. To me, that feels, like, really calculated in a way that's kind of scary.
No, yeah, and I agree. And that's the thing. We've seen those kind of themes with BoJack where he schemes. He when he's afraid something's gonna, like, tip and change how his life is, he schemes with, like, Todd with his opera and stuff. And we've seen it time and time again. So, like, hearing that, it's like, oh, like... Yeah.
And the way that it felt for me was, which I think is a really interesting kind of, like, you know, meta, you know, commentary on celebrity culture is, like, the way that we've experienced BoJack up to kind of this point is we've seen all of his mistakes from his point of view.
Right.
So we get all the background, we get all the self-justifying that he does, we get all the ways that other people were also responsible. So it's really easy to kind of brush off all of those things. Like, we see that he feels really bad about Penny, so it's like, oh, we can forgive him for that,
right,
whatever.
Exactly.
This reveal, it was so good because it's the way that you would find out if you were in this world, if you were just watching on the news, if you knew about him as a celebrity, if you didn't know him in this kind of personal way, because we've been experiencing his life for 5 years. So that was super impactful of, like, oh man, this person that I thought I knew, I just learned something that's, like, you know, devastating and kind of reframes the way that I have to think about this person.
I agree, and I think the BoJack team does such a smart and good way of, like, writing their characters where you feel them so personally and you feel like you know them, so when they drop this bombshell on you and you're like, do I even know BoJack? And then you're like, oh, this is a cartoon character, but it still feels very, very real. Right, and it's, like you said, it's very much like if you were watching a real celebrity and you thought you knew him. Yeah. And it's just...
Yeah, and I think that has to do with the intention is of, like, to kind of have that moment where you kind of get caught off guard by if there's a celebrity that you really liked and admired, and then you find out something awful about them, just kind of the way that makes you feel. I think that hit that really well.
Yeah, I agree, because, I mean, that's very, like... commonplace nowadays,
where you just kind of like, oh, I feel stupid, you
right
know?
You feel stupid, like when, like, an actor or somebody you really like comes out with, like, allegations or something similar, and you're like, oh,
it just does not feel good.
It doesn't, but I really liked how they played that. And that's another thing, and they kind of did this something else we'll talk more in the Angela episode, where it doesn't necessarily feel like it's a retcon. And I don't know if they, like you mentioned, like, if they planned, like, the whole 17 minutes thing since season 3, but at the same time, it's written in it well enough where it's like, it was gaps missing.
They were able to, like, identify kind of places where they could reframe things. Which I think isn't, like, foresight or foreshadowing, but it is, like, a really skillful thing to be able to, like, look at your own narrative and be like, you know, working within what we've already established.
Right, exactly.
Where do we have room to do something interesting?
Right, exactly.
That won't feel like it's coming out of nowhere.
Right, exactly. And this doesn't feel like it's out of nowhere.
Yeah, not at all.
No. But
and then, you know, the rest of the scene is just kind of gets worse and worse because then Braxby kind of lays out this, you know, pattern of all these women and all these characters that we've seen throughout the show. Young women or, you know, otherwise vulnerable women that he's, you know, taken advantage of in some way, or at least it could be seen that way.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, Princess Carolyn, Marcy, the president of his fan club, Penny, Jameson, the girl from rehab, Wanda, Sarah Lynn. You know, so that was a really good move to kind of,
I agree,
you know, take all these things that we've seen that we're familiar with and kind of
and connect a pattern with them, like,
and he refuses to see it.
Right, exactly. And I think the most important part is, like, how BoJack himself, like, refuses to see the pattern. He's like, that wasn't my intention, was to have this power over these women, but even though, like, that wasn't your intention, you need to notice that there's a pattern, and even if you didn't mean to do it, you still did it, which I think is very powerful and real.
And that can just show how, like, you know, deeply embedded those things are, like, that you can abuse power without even realizing it, because that's just, like, what your life is, and you haven't been forced to kind of, like, step outside yourself and recognize your actions for what they are.
Yeah, I agree.
He's in his little, you know, privilege bubble.
Right. Exactly.
So yeah, this scene was just amazing. And it reveals also that Dr. Champ was the one that revealed a lot of these things to to the press because he's not a therapist. He's a therapy horse.
I love Dr. Champ as a character, and I know I talked about this last time when he was in last part of the season, and he just like is such a heartbreaking character for me because he does go down a bad road, and like when you look at all the bad things BoJack has done, Dr. Champ is like the least his fault. Like he still fucked up in a sense, but it wasn't completely his fault.
Yeah, no, it wasn't, and I never really liked that part of his plot, but
I do too.
Yeah, I really like Dr. Champ as a character because he's just he is flawed and I
agree.
It's interesting. So it's kind of not fun to see him here, but I was like, yeah.
I do like when it's during the second interview with Braxby, there's that small scene where she's like BoJack is saying how he loved Sarah Lynn. She was different from those other women because he loved Sarah Lynn. And it kind of shows Princess Carolyn like he didn't love those other women at all. Yeah. And that's what goes through her head. Just episodes after the fact, she says, I've loved you for 25 years.
That he didn't love her.
Yeah. And it's like something that PC has probably had to play with, or like an idea that's probably been in her head for so long. And like she probably tells herself it's okay, but then hearing it almost verbatim, it's just like, I love Princess Carolyn a lot. Yeah.
I think the best like Princess Carolyn moment for this episode was afterwards when they're in the parking lot and he's kind of pacing back and forth and trying to self-justify this, and it just kind of slowly zooms in on Princess Carolyn and we don't really see BoJack and she's just kind of thinking and, you know, not really saying much, but you can just see everything on her face and just feel everything that she's feeling.
Right, exactly. And that's when it, like, kind of hits her, and it's just like, I can't continue making these messes better for you.
Yeah, exactly.
What am I getting out of it? Nothing. I have a daughter at home now. Yeah. Bye. Yeah. So, yeah. Also, I've also heard a lot of men.
Yeah, that was a very funny line in BoJack's like, I've also heard a lot of men, not just women. I know hurting women is like the hip thing now, but... Right. Yeah, so that entire, you know, main plot of this episode was just really... good. I was screaming.
Yeah, this episode's like very high anxiety for me. But yeah.
And then there's just a small kind of subplot with Diane. She meets Guy's son, Sonny. And it doesn't go well at first.
Lady. Yeah. Diane makes her boyfriend's son cry in the restaurant.
It happens.
But I like when Guy comes back and he's like, I was gone for 2 minutes. Like, he kind of, like, knows this kind of happens already.
Yeah, he's like, God, I should have known.
Which is very funny. I like Sonny as a character, even though he only has, like, a few scenes.
I know. But he's still a good character.
He's a good kid.
So, at the end of this episode, BoJack kind of has his last normal night before everything hits and kind of takes advantage of the fact that people still love him right now. Yeah. So, yeah, there's this kind of sweet scene where he goes to an old comedy club he used to go to with Herb, and there's like a little flashback, and he performs some stand-up and just enjoys the like positive attention while he can still get it.
Yeah, basically.
So. Yeah, which is a nice moment. And then at the very end we see Diane watching the second interview, and there's that kind of nice moment where Braxby is like, you know, like we've seen this pattern of a person who hurts people, and it's not because he wants to hurt them, but it's just because he doesn't care. Yeah. Is that like a different person, or is that you? And he says, yeah, it's me. Right. And like Diane kind of, I think it does, like the season does such a good job showing so much of their facial expressions and really small gestures, because she doesn't, you know, say anything, but just the way that she reacts to it is like, I agree. Says everything that you would need to know.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
Yeah, it's like a live action level of like acting sometimes, like just the really subtle facial
agree, and that's like something I think a lot of. So time to go on an animation rant with Rissa.
Let's do it.
I feel like there's such an issue.
We need play and music for that. Animation rant with Rissa.
Thanks for that cue in. Yep. Are you ready for my rant? Okay. So You know how, like, I feel like there's been a lot of issues with, like, specifically animated movies where they try to be very, very realistic and be like, look how much time we put into their hair.
This character has a billion hairs.
Yeah, exactly. And look at the waves and the ocean. It looks so real. But we've kind of strived away from what animation should be, which is, like, you can't do this with real life people. Like, Into the Spider-Verse is like one of the peak animated films recently because it pushes animation to its core. So what I'm saying is I think animation, good animation, strives for realism in the sense of subtlety with like facial expressions like that. I think that's when it really stands out, when you see like that subtlety with like a person's face but with their eyes or with their mouths or something like that, instead of just being like, whoa, that ocean looks like an ocean. Oh my god, why aren't I just watching a live action film?
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, that's it. That's the end of my rant. What's my end rant jingle?
That was the animation rant with Rissa.
Okay, good. I think we need to workshop it a little bit.
We'll workshop it.
It's okay.
Episode 13, The Horny Unicorn.
I hate the title of this episode so goddamn much.
It's hilarious. I love it.
I hate it.
So this is, I guess, a few months after the interview, as we handily find out, thanks to some exposition by the kids working at McDonald's or whatever.
I like how they do that exposition a lot.
No, I think what I love about the show is whenever they do kind of take those, sort of like writing shortcuts when they have like a flashback or something, they always kind of like make fun of it in a way of like, oh my god, it's 2007? Like actually my favorite one is when in the Halloween, this is a tangent now, the Halloween episode when this was like, hey, we just bought this house and it's the 60s. Just kidding. It's 1990 whatever
my favorite is
1999.
My favorite is the 2007 episode when it's like, it's July something 2007, and then like later it's like 2 weeks later 2007. He's like, why'd you say that? I'm having a stroke. That's my favorite joke.
So I love this kind of tradition for them. So we find out a couple things via this scene, kind of how things have been going for BoJack, and the fact that he settled with Sarah Lynn's family for $5 million, which is an interesting kind of thing to throw in there. And yeah, we didn't really need to see that happen, but that hit hard.
Well, it's interesting because there's a lot with
they must
Sarah
have,
Lynn's
sued him.
family. Yeah, but even then, it's like, Sarah Lynn's mother didn't do it for the grief. She sued it for the money.
Yeah.
Or at least she was manipulated to do that, or kind of pushed to do that by the stepdad. Because Sarah Lynn's parents aren't good parents.
Yeah, they're not good parents.
And, like, I think Sarah Lynn's mom is a very interesting, like, very side character. Because every scene you see, she's crying. But, like, she'll, like, be sobbing and she'll, like, say stuff. Like, it's...
I think it just really shows how kind of blinded she is to her daughter as a real person. Yeah. Like, there's that scene when she's, like, listening to the voicemail with the reporters.
Yeah.
And it's very clearly Sarah Lynn kind of taking out her...
aggression.
Her aggression and her, like...
resentment.
That's the word I was looking for. Her resentment of her mom, and her mom's just like, oh, see, she always wanted me to be happy.
Right,
like, sweetheart, when it was obviously sarcastic. Hi, Kismet.
One of the very, very early flashbacks, Sarah Lynn's mom is, like, very much pushing her daughter into stardom.
Oh, yeah.
Clearly, because she, like, makes that joke. That's, like,
I want to be an architect, and, like, oh, mommy didn't do it. Mommy did that Star Search producer, so you could go to college.
Right, exactly.
College is for ugly people who can't tap dance.
Me.
I don't know why I remember those lines so clearly. They're so funny.
It's so funny. And it's, like, it's very clear, and it's, like, her mourning is, like, you can tell it's real for her, because it's kind of like, I lost my income kind of mourning, honestly.
Yeah, I lost my income, I lost kind of who I thought my daughter was, even if she didn't really know her.
Yeah.
Even if they didn't have kind of a close relationship.
BoJack Horseman as a show is like, actually, fuck moms.
Yeah, what's their mom damage?
They're like, you may have one good mom, and it's Princess Carolyn.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting. Everybody has, like, bad moms.
Yeah.
It's a bad mom show.
I think that might be kind of showing how, like,
And
while
bad
characters,
dads too.
yeah, bad dads. Well, characters get all these different characters. Kind of how we were talking about how, like, different characters have addiction, different characters have depression, but they all deal with it with different ways.
Yeah.
Multiple of the characters in the main cast have come from bad families.
Right. Well, I think that kind of goes
extents.
to that thing that Raphael has talked a lot about.
Do tell.
That poem that kind of inspired him. That's like
What?
So there's this poem that's like man passes misery onto man, and I don't remember the entire poem, but I love it because there's this interview where he just fully quotes the entire poem, and it's not that long, but he just, like, from verbatim, he's like, oh, you know that poem? And then he just recites it, and I'm like, I love you. You're amazing.
I'm obsessed with that.
Like, that's the kind of energy that I want to have. And it really comes through in, like, the Times Arrow episode, because it, like, there's this line that's like, you know, it's like, you get fucked up by your parents and they were fucked up by their parents, and it kind of goes back and back. So I think that is really kind of what is being said with all of the bad parents.
Absolutely.
And kind of how we get the glimmer of hope with, like, Ruthie and, you know, Princess Carolyn is like, I'm gonna do this right.
Well, even, like, because it's clearly stated with BoJack from lines like Times Arrow, or, like, lines like you come from poison, that's your birthright kind of stuff. But I don't think it's, like, as clearly, like you said, like, with Princess Carolyn, you know, like, stuff like, she's like, I was made to do this, to have children. My mom had 12 of us. But even then, she has, like, a lot of guilt from her mother forced on her, especially when she has her first miscarriage. And like you said, that's kind of where the hopefulness with Ruthie comes from. The hopefulness of a new generation where they won't inherit that trauma. Or you won't force that trauma onto them.
Mm-hmm. Well, and with Hollyhock, too.
Oh,
and especially,
absolutely.
I think, with her...
Absolutely.
Then,
that's
all
what
BoJack.
season 4 is. Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what the end of this and the end of her arc, which, you know, comes into this episode, because it also starts with him trying to call her and getting her voicemail, and her, you know, just completely cutting him off.
Way to tie us back in.
Yeah, aren't I great at that?
Yeah.
And so...
No, I agree. And I think that's what Hollyhock needs. And I think she needs to be able to... I kind of think with that message... I never thought this show is saying, this is the dead end for addicts. Addicts, people with depression, people who fuck up, you're always going to end up fucking up more. You're always going to end up in death. I always believe this show is about change. Mm-hmm. So for Hollyhock, her change, Hollyhock, her change, her way of not inheriting the trauma like BoJack had is just to cut herself away from it. Yeah. And, you know, that works.
Fine.
And that's fine for her.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of interesting, too, because BoJack was so concerned that he was gonna ruin her. Like, he literally, in, you know, stupid piece of shit, he's like, you're ruining her.
Right.
So it's, and it's kind of, whether or not that's true, it's interesting to see this.
She won't let him have the chance to do it.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Moving along this episode, one of the subplots is Todd and Maude, which I didn't even realize this until I said the name out loud, that they're the same name.
Oh, I noticed that
Todd and
when
Maude.
I was watching.
So they're moving in together, and they're the exact same character.
Yeah, so we were kind of talking about this, and I can't remember her name, but I liked Todd's girlfriend in season 5.
Oh, the like Oxalotl or whatever.
And I like them, and I understand, and I do like the idea where it's like, we're the only asexuals who are still or who are still want romantics out of life. Are we only together because of that? And I
thought that was an interesting thing to explore.
Right. And I like them because their personalities contradict. But the thing was, I don't really like Todd and Maude because they're so similar.
I get why they did this, and I feel like it's a concept that seemed funny when they pitched it. Like, you know, Todd and Maude, they're the same. She's just the female version of Todd.
Basically.
But then when you see them together, they're not really that interesting. They don't really have any, like, chemistry.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, I don't really get why they're together other than the obvious, which is that they're the same, I guess.
Right.
And also, I don't know, Maud just really annoys me for some reason.
I think Maud was actually... Do you remember they were doing that, like, sweepstakes where you could be put into BoJack? I think Maud is actually that winning.
Wait, are you serious?
Well, because I saw a YouTube video of someone saying they were put into BoJack, and it's a picture of Maud. So I think
okay.
that's the winner, and that's no offense to that person.
Obviously, it's not the personality of the person.
No. It's just
oh my god, what
like
if you won that sweepstakes and it was you and you hated the character?
You like call Raphael and you're like, what the fuck?
I did not give you the permission to use my BoJack Sona to make this character who annoys me.
I think the person is Ace. I didn't watch the video.
Okay, so they probably had some kind of
So I think they were like,
about
could my character also be Ace?
building the character off of who they are. Well, I hope they're happy with it.
Yeah, that's all I can hope for. But me as another part of the audience, I'm not happy with it.
I know, I'm like,
and again,
I don't care that much, but I'm not excited by it.
Yeah, I'm not really, I don't really care for her
fine.
as a character. She's kind of there for me. But I mean, yeah, again, that's like, if that's true, that's
like,
not against
Todd
the
had
person.
more interesting relationships. Like Todd and Emily, obviously it wasn't gonna work between them, but they were an interesting pair too. They just had more kind of ways that they
That's the thing, because they had like,
each other,
yeah, they
but
challenge
also,
each other.
They were similar in ways, but they also like they weren't the exact same, which isn't fun to watch.
Right? Yeah, that's the thing. Is like,
yeah.
I think instances where these characters are the same are only fun to watch when other characters interact with them as well. Like, you think of it's bad to say, but like characters who are twins, and you know how they make twins like the exact same in personality, but when other characters interact and be like, oh, those silly twins, that's kind of fun.
Yeah, because it can be done well, because we were talking about before with, Pickles and Peanut Butter and Pogo.
Yeah!
That they're really similar, but they still kind of made that interesting
because they challenge each other.
Because they had challenges, because they had an actual kind of plot to work through.
Yeah.
Whereas Todd and Maude don't have anything to do.
Right.
They're just
Todd has a plot to work through,
we're gonna move in
but
together.
Maude isn't in it.
Yeah. There's no conflict. There's nothing for them to do. So they're
Maude doesn't really have any conflict to her character.
Yeah. She's just around.
The only conflict we see is resolved where she tries to date these men and they want to have sex, but she doesn't want to. So then BoJack introduces her to the app. And then she clearly wants to move out from her parents' house, and so she does.
Right, it's like
that's it.
Yeah, there's not that much going on there.
There's not much inner conflict, there's not conflict with other characters, so I don't know. But, anyway.
Swing and a miss, I guess. Alright, Vance Wagner. I think we might have... well, first of all, I kind of loved just the very obvious reminder of who this character is.
Yeah.
Since he was just kind of a one-off character in season 5, we probably didn't expect to see him again. So he comes back, he says his name like 3 times, like, Vance Wagner, remember me, Vance Wagner, the guy who Charlie Sheen once called a little much, which I just think is hilarious.
It is very funny.
So he's back in it, and I think we have a... Like, what did you think about this plot?
Ooh.
I think we might have a point of contention.
Ooh. Well, okay, I hate Vance Wagner as a character, but I like Vance Wagner as a character because I like what they're trying to say with him.
Oh, okay.
And I like
Do you like that he's here and he's doing this?
I do, because I think it can kind of show where BoJack could end very easily, but also show how he's different from Vance, and people like Vance.
Okay. Then we are in agreement.
Okay, you were like, oh, I am ready to fucking...
I just thought we could have an interesting moment where we disagreed, but that's not going to happen. Sorry.
I'm sorry. We're too much like Todd and Maude.
We're the Todd and Maude.
Yeah.
When we were watching it, I thought you said something, and I was like, oh, interesting.
What were you going to say?
No, I agree. I like this plot. I think it's really interesting and kind of heartbreaking and hard to watch because of the way they get along.
Yeah.
And, like, the way that... they sort of wallow together, and he kind of tries to pull, BoJack down this path of just becoming, like, more bitter and resentful and not even trying anymore.
Yeah.
And just like, come with me, like, I'll show you the way, we'll make these movies together, we'll just lean into this persona for you. And BoJack kind of, like, it feels good to have somebody who understands him at this moment, because he's been so alone.
Yeah.
So, like, he has a good time with him for a little while at the restaurant.
And I think I said it's hard to watch because it's so uncomfortable to see BoJack, like, lead into that persona. But I mean, it doesn't mean I don't like it.
Yeah.
But, I think this episode and really the B part of this season really shows how we interact with people and how people can change us and shape us, whether that's good or bad. Because I really feel like this episode shows how BoJack acts around people like Vance and how he can lean into that kind of character.
Right.
You know what
that's
I'm
a
saying?
really good observation,
Thank you.
because I think a lot of this season shows this really real kind of flexibility that he has in the way that he views himself in the world. Yeah. And I really want to get into this next week when we talk about The View from Halfway Down, because I just think it's so realistic and something that you don't see in fiction that often, because it's really hard to do and it takes a lot of work, but like people contain multitudes. And we're
we show different faces of ourselves with different people, and I think this really shows a face BoJack doesn't really show when he's with Vance.
Yeah, that he can have that side of just being like, oh, you know, like fuck everybody else.
Right,
like,
exactly.
You know,
because he always has other characters in the cast being like, okay, BoJack, you shouldn't do that. BoJack, you shouldn't act
people
like
are
that.
usually trying to lift him up.
Right,
and
but
when this
Vance
guy's
is just
breaking him down, he's like, yeah, I'll go along for the ride.
Right, exactly. So I like that in that sense. And I also, like I said, I feel like Vance is a good foil in the sense where BoJack is so similar to him, but you also at the same time are like, BoJack's not as bad as this guy, but it's like he can be. Yeah. He is at times.
Right, and I think that that's a really cool thing to put in here at this point when he's kind of at this rock bottom, because like Vance was obviously set up from the audience to be sort of just this,
a dirtbag dude.
Yeah, to be kind of like a punching bag of like this guy that's so comically like unlikable.
Yeah.
So that to see him in what is almost like a more sympathetic light when he is, you know, talking to BoJack and he's like, oh, these people, you know, just enjoy seeing you fail because it makes them feel superior.
Yeah.
And it's kind of this weirdly, like, you know, liberating thing for BoJack to
and it's like a perspective we don't really see as people who aren't celebrities, where it's like there's this idea where it's like you have to put up a facade and they don't really see who you are as a person. And like you said with like Vance saying like they just want to watch you fall, that kind of correlates directly to BoJack saying like very early on to Sarah Lynn, like, you are their puppet, you're gonna dance and sing whenever they want you to. Kind of idea. So they have very similar outlooks, especially to celebrityism.
Yeah. I think it's interesting too, just within like not even just the celebrity angle, but just within his personal life, that the idea that his friends aren't going to forgive him, which we see when he goes to Todd's house and gets, you know, turned away from the party. Yeah. That like at what point are you not forgivable anymore? And
Vance really plays on that and manipulates that and points out to him like, everyone's left you just like they left me. Right. So we are the same.
We're the same.
We're the same. It's very much the villain, we are the same kind of thing. Also, Vance has the best line in this episode, which is, I'm getting cucked by my own daughter. And his daughter's like, you don't even know what that word means.
That was hilarious.
Which was a very funny. Also, the no Jack line cracks me up.
No Jack.
You're BoJack, aren't you? No, yes, you are. No Jack. Which is a very funny line.
I also liked kind of backtracking when he gets sued for $100 million by the Xerox Corporation and has to sell his house, just as a little kind of plot point. I mean, there's all these ways that he's just like completely spiraling, you know, financially he's lost everything, you know, his career is pretty much gone, you know, personally he's getting turned away by his friends. Yeah. So it really is like he has suffered.
I like when media that have like big rich characters as the main characters kind of go into this idea, because like throughout the entire series of BoJack you were not worried about his money. You're like, he fucked off to New Mexico and bought a boat, that's not going to put a dent in his savings, right? But then it's like you get to that point where it's like he is low on funds, he just got sued for so much money, and it's like he's getting sued again, so it's like that kind of. Also, they point this out in the show, but for the fact that he's getting sued more by the company than for Sarah Lynn's death.
Which is funny,
Which is funny.
It's like, oh, like this would almost be comical. Right. But it's not, because you're very in debt.
I like his accountant. I wish his accountant was in here in this series more.
Shaz Chaz and Gaz. Or,
Chaz and Gaz.
Yeah, Gaz the accountant and Chaz the lawyer, I think.
Which is very funny. That might be backwards, but I like them.
I don't know, one of the other.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's a little subplot with Diane and Sunny again, where he reads her book.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought this scene was very cute and kind of, like, in a meta way was kind of interesting, too.
Yeah.
Because he points out this scene that she had written, and he's like, oh, was that real? Like, did that really happen?
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, no, it's fiction, but you can tell from the previous, what Diane has talked about, that she's drawing from her own experiences, because it's that thing, like, can you still be someone's best friend and love them even if you're disappointed in them? And that's kind of been this ongoing theme with Diane. So I just love that, seeing her put her real life kind of experiences and this, like, little nugget of emotional truth in this, in this story, and that really speaks, to Sunny and to her readers as a whole.
And going back to that, like we were talking last episode, how Diane has found, like, a form of writing where she can put her experiences, but they're like, they've become more universal. Not everyone can like relate to, I was good friends with a celebrity and they fucked me over, they continuously refuse to change, but people can relate to, my friend has been disappointing me, but they're still my friend. Like, Sunny can relate to that as a high schooler, and he relates to the dad thing as well.
Yeah. It just makes me think of, like, this show in a sort of meta
yeah.
sense, in the way that you can always kind of tell when there's some nugget of something real.
You get what you get out of art.
Yeah.
Whatever Todd says in the art is what you get out of.
More about what people get out of it rather than what you put into it.
Yeah. And it's like you can take different things out of art, and it's like I like that. Also, I just like Sunny. It's like, was that real?
Yeah, no, he's very cute.
Was that real too? He's very cute.
So then the end of the episode, he goes to the frat party, BoJack, and he tries to call Hollyhock again, and her phone has been disconnected. Her phone number. So then he reads her letter. We don't get to know what it says.
It just says "fuck you" over and over again. Hollyhock gets the final fuck.
She got the final fuck. He goes back in the party and just heavily dissociates and starts drinking again.
Yeah. He definitely
just sits there for hours, and then by the end of it, he has a beer in his hand.
Me.
Hope not.
Well, so I know people are upset and are like, I want to know what Hollyhock's letter says. And I'm one of those people where it's like, you can show, don't tell. You can obviously, you can clearly see it's her cutting him out of his life.
Yeah, I feel no need to know what the letter says.
Yeah, because you can tell, you can get from context what it says.
It's pretty obvious what the impact of the letter is, what it said. I don't think there's anything more specifically that we need to know. And kind of, as I've said before, I like how this plot has been dealt with Hollyhock, because I feel like in this show we've had enough kind of dramatic, confrontation scenes where I'm going to tell off BoJack. We don't really need another one at this point.
Well, that's the thing. I think it's so artfully done, because throughout this entire series, every season when you learn, okay, someone says fuck you to BoJack, and that's them cutting BoJack out of their life, and you're waiting, and then you don't necessarily get it literally from Hollyhock, but you get it from Hollyhock. Yeah, you get it,
that she's the last kind of person who has this, well, sort of, that has this storyline where it's like, we're done.
Yeah.
Permanently.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, it kind of belongs to every main cast character this season.
That's true. Yeah, I know. I was like,
well, in different variations.
Yeah.
Well, and it's like, and like you said, it doesn't really match Hollyhock's character to just have a huge blown out argument.
Yeah.
And I think...
that's such a hard thing to deal with, because I think she knows, like, as we kind of saw in the scene at her college, that if she talked to him in person, like, he's very persuasive. She's young. She's, like, 18. Like, she doesn't have that much experience with people. It's a kind of scary and intense, like, situation to be in, to want to cut out, like, someone out of your life like that. Yeah. And I understand why she would have done it this way.
I agree.
Because if she talked to him, he probably would have just tried to spin it and kind of tried to, like, appeal to her. And
exactly, I agree.
Bring her back in and stuff.
I agree.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, and it's like, it saddens me, because I really like BoJack and Hollyhock as, like, characters and, like, with their personality, or with their relationship, but it's also at the same time, it's like, this is better for Hollyhock.
Yeah, it's a major, heartbreak, especially thinking back to the end of season 4, with now I can never watch the end of that episode the same way again, where Hollyhock says,
Stop.
I told you I didn't need another dad.
Stop talking to me.
But I've never had a brother.
Can you please shut up?
Which before was always a happy tears moment.
It is.
And now it hurts so bad.
But it's like, I don't know. It's like I wish they could work things out, but at the same time, like you said, Hollyhock's young.
They might. I mean,
they might. Know. You never know. Yeah. That's why how I like the ending of the show.
Yeah.
Which we'll talk about later.
Yes.
And I'm ready to fight anybody who doesn't like the ending.
Oh yeah,
of the show.
I will literally throw down.
We'll be like that. You could beat us at this location.
Yeah, I'll turn on my location. We can meet. We can.
You know how like in you know how BoJack's dad dies.
With the duel. That's me us. Over the end of BoJack. Yeah, I'm like, hey, anyone out there who didn't like the end of BoJack, you want to meet me in a state where dueling is still legal? Meet me at Pistols at Dawn.
Pistols at Dawn. I'll pay for your flight in a hotel. Is it illegal in some states? I can assume.
I assume it's not legal anywhere. Episode 14, Angela. I gotta say, like, out of all the characters, I did not expect to see Angela again.
Yeah, they brought back a lot of characters this season. Yeah,
because she was really we only really ever saw her in this like one scene, and that's the only time that she ever met BoJack.
Well, I feel like they kind of brought her back, especially to show like this kind of perspective with her, especially because like with this more arranged storyline of women BoJack overpowers, I feel like people would be like, but wait a sec, what about that lady who fired her? And,
sure, yeah.
Yeah. So, but I mean, I like the opening with this from her, with her flashback, if you want to take it from here, Jenna.
Sure.
Jenny.
Jenna? Is that my name
I was going to say Jennifer, but I decided not to, so now your name's Jenna.
I get it a lot.
What if I was just like, what if 5 years in this friendship, I was like, hey, Joey, you want to come over?
Oh, God. Do you want me to take it from here? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think you could articulate it better.
I will take it from here. So I think it kind of shows the way that Angela has had to operate in order to succceed in business. And,
yeah, I agree.
Thank you. As I read off the bullet points that we wrote together. Yeah, I agree. Well said.
Yeah, good job, Jenny.
I sure can read sentences.
Sometimes.
Sometimes. And I think, I mean, this is another example of kind of the way that this season has reframed things that we knew or thought we knew about BoJack, and kind of really played with perspective, because the way we initially saw that scene in season 1 was that BoJack was kind of powerless, and there was
season 1?
Yeah, because it was the telescope.
Oh, you're right.
That he was powerless, like he didn't really have a choice, and he really felt that way. So what was really interesting was kind of the reveal that like they were both scared, and that they both were like kind of
also the idea that like BoJack could have called her bluff and could have kept Herb on the show. So that kind of ruins everything, and we'll get more into it when it gets into it.
Should we cover the subplots first? And then
let's talk about these subplots.
Let's
talk about this B stories.
So there's just a little Mr. Peanut Butter and Diane thing going on here where they talk to each other because he has written a memoir, and it's just funny because he's like, literally anyone can write a book.
Yeah.
And they have a nice little, kind of post-mortem on their relationship. That kind of sums up their arcs really well. Like Diane says that she needed to learn how to be an us, and Mr. Peanut Butter had to learn how to be a me, which is a great way of putting it.
Right, yeah, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, like that was the problem in their relationship, and that's kind of what the resolution for both of them has been, is like Diane has found how to be in a relationship, and then Mr. Peanut Butter has figured out how to be alone.
Yeah.
Which is what they both needed to do. And it's just really sweet too when you kind of get the unexpected wisdom from Mr. Peanut Butter when he says, if we didn't meet each other until now, we wouldn't be the people who we are now. Because Diane says, like, if we met each other now, then things would have been different. But which really goes to then the end of the season.
Where like that idea where like people change you, and maybe they're not supposed to be in your lives forever, but you can appreciate how they changed you, and I think that's
which is really sweet because Diane like says that to BoJack at the end, and kind of the idea that she maybe got that idea kind of
from Mr.
planted
Peanut
in the head
Butter.
from Mr. Peanut Butter said. I think I really like that.
I do too. I agree, and I think I just really like that sentiment as a whole.
Yeah, it's a
good one.
Yep.
But yeah, and I always like when they give Mr. Peanut Butter these like nice little nuggets of wisdom, and then he ends on a joke.
Yeah.
I like it. But
That's
yeah,
great for him.
Yeah.
He is kind of the great, like, unchanged character from this show, though.
Yeah.
Which we'll talk about more, I guess, at the very end. But
Yeah.
he's, like, the one static character.
He very much is, but
like,
and like
I'm ending where I started. Sort of. He gets a little bit of an arc, but
I feel like his
much.
personality stays very much the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, on to my favorite character in the entire show. Character actress Margot Martindale, who gets her own character arc.
I know, I love this. She's like, trying to make amends for her past sins by helping Todd for like one last heist.
Yeah.
I also kind of love the ongoing joke, and I think they made this joke twice. Like, oh, is this the bridge where they shot Grace?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then Todd and his mom kind of, reconcile and try to figure out what their relationship is now.
And this, you know what? This kind of goes back to, because Todd says, I don't really need a mom now. Kind of referencing Hollyhock saying, I don't need another dad.
Yeah, I mean, it is, like, this show has a lot of interesting things to say about, like, the ways that
parental
relationships change and evolve, and how people come into and leave your life.
Yeah.
And the things that I think make everyone feel a lot of emotions, no matter who you are.
Well, because I think something I really love about BoJack is there's a lot of media that talks about romantic partners leaving and breakups and such, but there's not a lot of media that talks about friendship breakups.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think BoJack tackles it quite a lot, especially like I said in this season, talks about relationships and people leaving and people
just
changing.
As painful as any other kind of relationship ending.
Especially like when we both were kind of first watching this show.
Right. We've had a very
not
personal,
to get too deep, but
we've had a very personal impact on.
Yeah. So like just to come back to see the end of it.
Yeah, it meant a lot.
Yeah.
Personally, not to get real.
Yeah. Can I just read this next bullet point just as it is?
Yeah.
Judah has a show with his band. PC goes, but he leaves to go back to the office and sings the song to her there. His song is terrible, but his meat is huge. And
yeah, when I was that was the joke that Rissa wanted to make, so I put it in our bullet points.
Thank you. Yeah, Judah's song sucks. But I love you, Judah.
Yeah, Judah is hot. Can we say it?
Yeah, yes we can.
I was like, get it, PC.
Get it, PC. Judah's gonna blow PC's back out. Yes.
It was very sweet. I also was
Ripped
totally
to Ralph, but
not expecting this to happen. I mean, I was so glad Judah was back, but for them to get together romantically, I was like, whoa!
I wasn't expecting... So, a few days before Season 6 came out, I put a post on Tumblr that was like, prayer circle for Judah and or Ralph to come back, and then Judah came back, and I was like, I was not expecting this. I made a joke.
We did it. And I love Ralph, but I also think, like, a lot of what BoJack does so right is that there's just these people that leave and they never come back, and it hurts. And, like, that's what Ralph is.
But this season brings back a lot of characters to enforce that point where sometimes people come back.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think the thing is, too, like, I mean, what ultimately is the difference between Ralph and Judah for Princess Carolyn is Ralph, they both kind of fell into the issue where they didn't think Princess Carolyn could do something by herself. Ralph with her baby, and Judah with the business, with the company.
Right, yeah.
And that's ultimately why they got cut out of her life.
And it was kind of a problem that Princess Carolyn had to deal with, is being able to
have people help her.
To let someone take care of her.
Right.
Was part of her problem, and with Ralph, she couldn't really, like, overcome that.
Right.
But
with Judah, she kind of can, and that's why he comes back in the first place, and that's why he continues to stay there, because PC is like, you can have a job here, and Judah understands that as her asking for help. And
I think another thing about this kind of Judah and Princess Carolyn thing that's really interesting and kind of interesting way is that like what Princess Carolyn says to BoJack earlier in the season. She says, like, you were the great love of my life. Like, you know, I fell in love with you when I was young and stupid, and I don't think I'm ever going to have a love like that again.
Yeah.
I think with that in mind, it's interesting how Judah and PC's relationship, it's not this kind of, like...
I'm in love with you, too.
It's not, like, a super intense, like...
Yeah.
Like, they're sweet together, but it's not... Like, even with Ralph, it was kind of a more of, like...
It's drop everything.
Like, the feelings were a little bit more intense. I think this is just the sort of sweet, sort of mature, like... Yeah, it works. Like, I'm not, like... I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
No, I absolutely agree.
It's very understated.
No, I absolutely agree. Especially because I think PC is very much like BoJack in the sense where she kind of idolizes her life as stories. She has a great line in season 5 where she says she loves stories and she always admires stories like Amelia Earhart and such. Yeah. So I feel like she kind of builds for trying to have a romantic relationship like that. But her and Judah are very, like, when he says, I love you, it's a very quiet, it's a very tender moment. And she doesn't even necessarily say it back. She kind of goes, oh, yeah, I guess this could be love.
And they just go back to work.
Yeah, and I think that works. I think it's, I think it's like a very, no, I agree. I think it's a very, like, quiet, this is just how real people are in love.
Right, it's just like it's a thing. It's a thing.
And I think when I was kind of thinking about this scene where PC doesn't even necessarily say it back and she just kind of makes an O sound, like a surprise.
Yeah,
and I think
like,
that's kind of I think that's kind of her realizing, you know, love doesn't have to be this extravagant over the top thing.
Yeah.
It can be this quiet in your office space just working together thing. Yeah. And I think that's kind of when she realizes, I can also have a different love than I had with BoJack.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be this intense, like, terrible, you're fighting in a restaurant.
Yes. Yes.
Like, that kind of thing that's, like, so emotionally, like, you know, compelling, but is sort of destructive at the same time.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that she can kind of find something that's a little bit more mellow and is gonna work when she has this kid and, like...
Right, exactly.
She can't do that intense thing.
Right,
you know?
exactly.
She has more... She has someone who's more important.
Right.
You know?
Right. No, I agree.
It's interesting. I don't know.
It is, because I think once PC becomes... She decided to be a single mother, I think, like... unconsciously she had to know any romantic relationship that comes, it can't be the same like it was with BoJack or with Ralph. They had to become second or on the same par with Ruthie, and she kind of sees that where Judah will put Ruthie above and will take care of her.
He fits in well into that.
Also, kids love Judah, which is very cute.
The kids love Judah.
It's very
sweet.
That is canon fact. So yeah.
The Angela thing. Let's talk about Angela.
Oh, let's talk about Angela.
Let's talk about it. So, so she wants him to sign away the rights to Horsing Around so he won't get the residuals anymore and they can cut him out of the show. So that's this sort of interesting moment because that's been his identity since, like, the very beginning of the series.
I think it's interesting, too. I was thinking between the opening of last episode where, you know, everyone hates BoJack and such and he gets, like, glares at. And it's very interesting to compare that to even the beginning of the series where if people, like, look at his way, they're just like, hey, aren't you the horse from Horsing Around? And how that changes.
Yeah.
And how the perspective of the public changes.
Yeah, they don't recognize him for that anymore. It would just be like, the guy who killed Sarah Lynn.
Right, exactly. So Yikes. And so so when Angela, like, greets him like that, like, with the Horsing Around reference...
Yeah.
He hasn't heard that in a while, probably.
But interesting.
But no, so, you know, when Angela finally comes through and says, you know, I made a bluff, and I thought you were going to call it, she makes this great thing where, did you read it?
So...
If you play these games, if I wasn't so this, if I didn't do that, but you did, and you are, and here we are...
Right.
I just really...
Yeah, that's a really good kind of moment where the way that BoJack kind of tries to reframe himself of, like, you know, like, I'm a good person deep down. I know I can be selfish and narcissistic.
Well, yeah, and I think that's the thing BoJack has always struggled with is he will consistently blame his mistakes, on his upbringing, on his alcoholism, on his addiction, and he even does that during the interview. And so when he learns this about Angela, he's like, you are the reason why all this bad stuff happened, it's all on you. And she's like, no, but you went ahead with it, and you can't stop blaming this, and you are who you are.
Yeah, you didn't walk away. And she compares them too, because she says, like, we both, you know, just did what we had to do.
Yeah.
Like, we're the same.
We're the same, BoJack. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Which is interesting, and it's kind of this, you know, humanizing moment for her, too, as this figure that kind of, you know, started this path for BoJack, ruinous path, to see how shaky it was, and to see how there's these moments that, like, in his mind it was so clear, but, like, it didn't have to be that way. It wasn't some, like, unstoppable force of nature.
Right, exactly.
It was just, like, a person who was kind of unsure about what they were doing, and who was also scared. Yeah. And they were both scared, and they both didn't really want to do it, and I'm like, that's life, man!
Right, exactly. And it's, like, I think that kind of goes back to, like, this story doesn't have, like, people do bad things, but there's no villains. There's no good guys or bad guys!
There's just guys!
Doing
stuff.
Because there's people who do shitty things, and there's people who, like, every single character plays the antagonistic, conflicting role.
Right.
At least once.
God. Yeah.
So it's, like...
I know, I feel like this really is that kind of moment of, like...
perspective, kind of.
Yeah, of, like, perspective in taking this character who seemed like this sort of cut-and-dry villain, because especially the way she's framed in that flashback, she comes in with her dark sunglasses, and she sits down, and she's very much,
has this cold,
like,
condescending
this
voice.
is what you have to do, you know, don't try and fight it, and stuff, and she seems, she seems so scary, it seems very, you know, black and white, and then I think, too, what's interesting is, I think at the time, they weren't intending to ever bring her back or humanize her. So I think from a writing perspective, it's really interesting to kind of circle back around to that moment and give a little bit more depth to that moment.
And this is the second time where it's like, it's not necessarily a retcon, like we said, but like more like there were like blips that we could like write more into,
they're just
like
kind
you
of
said,
reframing it.
Just reframing it. It doesn't seem badly written. You aren't like, oh well, they didn't seem like this at the first time. Exactly. It doesn't change the whole narrative at all. It's just a different
and the way that it changes it is in a way that I think is really interesting. You know, to think about it, and it kind of shows the way that, like, it wasn't necessarily that Angela was, like, homophobic. We have a theory that she's a lesbian.
Well, yeah.
She mentions
a 40-year-old companion. She won't let her drive, and we're like, is that her girlfriend?
Huh? Girlfriend. Okay, so that's kind of interesting that it was, like, it was just kind of, like, these, you know, societal forces at play that's like,
especially with, like, Angela as a woman in the business.
Right, like, she was just doing what she had to do in order to not lose her job. BoJack was doing what he had to do to not lose his job.
Right, exactly. It's a very, like, I can't remember the phrase, but I was gonna say hippo eat hippo world. It's dog eat dog world, isn't
hippo eat hippo.
I was thinking of hungry
hippos.
It's a hungry hippo world.
The hippos don't eat the other hippos, though.
I understand that.
Okay, just making sure.
It's, what is it, dog eat dog world?
Dog eat dog world.
Dogs don't eat their dogs, though. Do they?
Yeah, I think typically they don't.
We need to go to Wikipedia right now.
Does Wikipedia have a section on with dogs eat other dogs?
Wikipedia has a section on phrases, I'm sure. Idiosms.
That's true.
Is that what it's called?
Probably.
Okay.
They might have a page.
Hippo eat hippo world.
It's a hippo eat hippo world. That sounds like a joke they would make in BoJack. People would be like, what? Is that a regional phrase?
Yeah. I'm sad BoJack never made like a Duck Duck Grey Duck and Duck Duck Goose joke. Speaking of regional jokes,
you're right.
For as many Minnesota like references they make.
So for those of you who aren't from Minnesota, Minnesota's like the only state in the U.S. that says Duck Duck Grey Duck instead of Duck Duck Goose. And it's something that for some reason has become like a point of pride for us because we're like that.
Because we're weird and we're like, oh, we're different. Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, we're different.
And yeah, it would have been really funny, especially since they have referenced like Minneapolis. And
yeah, they mentioned like some
like
pretty
3 times, which is like, more than in most shows. And trust me, I pay attention.
Yeah, well, yeah, they make Todd makes a joke, PC makes a joke, Hollyhock's mother lives in
Minneapolis. Yeah, that's 3 whole references.
Yeah, that's like 3 more than your average show.
They could have made a Duck, Duck, Grey Duck.
It
could have been like 2 groups of like 2 ducks and a gray duck and 2 ducks and a goose, and they're like glaring at each other in the background.
Yes,
and then the duck and the gray duck are wearing like Minnesota Vikings jerseys. That's all it is. That's
BoJack team. I know the show ended, but hire us.
Can you just like put that into one of the old episodes?
One of the old episodes.
It's on Netflix. No one will even notice. I'll go back and watch it.
Can you even do that?
I'd probably. You know how Disney was editing a lot of their stuff for the Disney Plus release?
Yeah, I told you about the Gravity Falls thing, right?
I think so. Yeah, oh yeah, you did.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I think they edited it back now, actually.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's very funny.
Anyway, I guess we should finish this,
Yeah, we went on a Minnesota trivia thing.
So, yeah, I love the end of this episode, because BoJack breaks into his house, and there was a moment, like, at first I forgot, as I'm sure they kind of wanted the audience to forget for a moment that that's not his house. And then once he was like really in the house and kind of started looking around and you realize the things weren't his, I was like, oh, BoJack, you don't live here anymore.
I'm obsessed with this family who didn't change the BH on like the...
They're like, we don't have money for that. We just bought this house for like $100 million.
Still says BH.
Or however much.
Yeah. No, yeah. And like another thing is like, I really always like it when like, I don't like it when BoJack goes on trips, like drug trips and stuff.
It doesn't make me feel good.
It doesn't make me feel good, but visually it looks great all the time.
It does.
Because they always have like a good way of giving the audience a sense of what they're going through.
Right, the kind of shakiness and blurriness of like the vision.
Yeah.
And then he watches this old like audition tape for Horsing Around, which is a great heart-wrenching moment of kind of just seeing like where it all started for him and seeing Herb, and just makes me weak.
And then when it like clicks off to show his face hardened after the years after his life has started.
This is the beginning of the rest of your life, or whatever he says, and then it clicks over and it's like, this is where he is now because of this path.
It's so artfully done, and I love it.
Fucking hurts, man.
Yeah.
So... And then the end credits, so you get the full BoJack, do the BoJack song.
Do the BoJack song.
I adore. Finally. Will Arnett, I love you.
Yeah, Jenny was like, I can't believe they made Will Arnett do this. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Will Arnett begged them to write the whole song.
You're right. He enthusiastically
he was like,
did the BoJack song.
He's like, if I am to do the last season, he's an executive producer on the show, isn't he?
Yeah.
I don't know how much...
I don't really know what executive producers do, but he certainly is one.
I feel like he probably helps build the character of BoJack, I'm sure, a little bit. As his actor.
I know that, like, Will Arnett, I think, was the kind of top choice.
Yeah.
But they had already, begun developing the character, obviously. But, For the first season, but then that was kind of their first choice, and I've been watching a lot of interviews with Raphael recently. And... yeah, he said that like the casting director was like, Will Arnett, and he was like, you think we can get Will Arnett? And she was like, sure, probably.
I would love to voice an alcoholic horse.
Yeah. And then he was able to kind of bring in a lot of other people with his, star power. Like, I think he kind of brought in Amy Sedaris and Margot Martindale.
Yeah.
And someone pointed out that, back to the theme song thing, that ever since he signed away the rights, so just for the last 3 episodes, they don't use, like, the back of the 90s theme.
Well, this is the only episode where he signed away.
No.
What?
From the next 3 episodes.
Oh, I thought you meant the previous episodes. I'm like, what are you talking about?
No, like this one and then the last 2 episodes.
Yeah, you're right.
They don't use that back of the 90s theme again.
No, they don't.
So I don't know if that's intentional, because also they're kind of significant episodes where they wanted to use probably other songs.
Yeah, and I couldn't see them using the actual theme song for the very last episode.
Oh, yeah,
either.
No way. And not the one before either.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's anything, but it's interesting.
But it's interesting, especially, I mean, they could have ended this episode with it, so I think it's telling that they didn't.
Right.
Because he's not, back in the 90s, he wasn't in a very famous TV show anymore.
Yeah, the past has been rewritten.
The past has been rewritten. the past has been rewritten because of the Angela backstory too.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting.
Oh,
all that.
Wow.
Good old reframing.
That's cool.
I just want to tell you a fun fact that I learned.
Me?
Yeah.
Only
just
me?
to wrap this up, only you, and if any, probably only you. Does anyone listen to these? So, as part of my like BoJack interview binge this week, I learned something about free churro, which is that most of the audio take on what we hear when we listen to Free Churro is Will Arnett's very first take.
I heard that, actually.
Yeah.
I heard that.
Yeah.
I heard that a lot of it was his first take.
He nailed it.
Which is really cool.
So yeah, we stan.
We stan.
We stan. I shrieked because Rissa tried to put something on my stomach.
Well, I'm one of those idiots who I only know Will Arnett from BoJack. And so a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I love Arrested Development. I'm like, what?
I'm trying to get her to watch Arrested Development.
I didn't tell you this story yet. I went to see the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. Mm-hmm. Because I love Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yep.
And there was a commercial for an upcoming animated movie about monster wrestling or something. I don't know. It was from Paramount or something.
Okay.
So during it, the main monster, he sounded very familiar. I was like, oh, I know that voice. And my girlfriend leans over and she's like, I think that's BoJack. And I'm like, BoJack?
BoJack?
So it was very surreal to hear Will Arnett.
Have you heard, like, the Recess commercials that he does?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I have, because I'll go to my parents and they actually have cable TV because they're, like, in their 50s. And I'll be like, BoJack?
I know, that's very jarring.
And I swing my head around.
You know, another thing that was really funny about listening to interviews with Raphael is that he voices Charlie Witherspoon.
I hear Charlie a lot when I listen to him.
Yeah, and like it's obviously an exaggeration, but he does just kind of talk like that too. He just
kind of talk
like he'll just be like, I don't know. yeah, I came up with the idea for BoJack.
That's gonna turn out great on the sound edit.
It is.
No, I know.
Yeah, that's why the show. I was just kind of thinking about like what did this show to me.
I love when you watch interviews with the voice actors and you're just like, oh, you just sound like that.
Right. Like I think there's a level of kind of exaggeration with all of them, but not much.
Not Diane's.
I feel like Diane not really at all. Her voice just really sounds like that.
I think because I was watching an interview with them.
Although what's interesting is she also, like, Alison Brie also voices a lot of the other characters, like Vincent Adultman.
She does?
Yeah!
I didn't know that. So funny!
Yeah, and now re-listening to it, you can definitely hear that it's her.
Oh, I have to go listen to that.
And a few other ones. Shoot, I don't remember, but she's done a lot of kind of other parts.
That's
Same
so
with,
Mr. Peanut
Mr.
Butter?
Peanut Butter. What's his actor's name?
Here, I took a picture of what he...
Paul... Wait. Shoot, I should know this.
You should.
I'm so sorry.
Here, because I just...
say Paul.
Well, I just took a picture of him because I was like, was anybody going to tell me...
Paul Tompkins.
Yeah, Paul Tompkins. I was like, was anybody going to tell me... Oh, yeah, it's Paul F. Tompkins.
Paul F. Tompkins.
And how he looks is fantastic.
He's like a ray of sunshine. Yeah, and he also has voiced a lot of other characters. Yeah. Just like small...
That's very funny. I like that.
And Lisa Hannawalt voiced the chicken in Chickens.
Oh, I love that.
Book back? Book back?
Yes, you can also book back.
Those are my fun facts.
Thanks for that. That was fun.
Was that a fun segment?
Yeah, I thought that was fun. I thought that was a fun segment. We should do that all the time.
Will you play us out? Give me some play out music.
Now, boys and girls, if you want to do the...
Perfect.